Hey guys, so today I'm gonna do a book talk on Library of Souls by Ransom Legs. So Library of Souls is the third and final book in the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children series. If you want to see my book talk on the second one, Hollow City, and the first one, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, click the eye up here. So, the series is very good. It combines like different pictures like this and then the story, and it's so very good. So if you have not read that, you really should. It's so good. It's about Jacob, who, the main character is Jacob, and he finds, well, his grandpa dies, and then he has to find something. So, yeah, go read this if you have not, and if you haven't, and if you haven't read Library of Souls yet, it's time to say goodbye so I don't spoil you, because I'm going to talk about it now. So if you don't want to be spoiled on Library of Souls, bye. Okay, so first off, it starts off with he's controlling the hollow that had attacked them before in the photo booth. And the friends had been taken away, so they're wanting to find them. And they're going to use Addison's tracking skills to be able to scent peculiar children. So they leave with Jake's hollow that he uses and controls, and then they get cornered by rats, and so they are forced to go down the train tunnel, where they're forced to go down the train tunnel, and then they have to. Okay. So they go onto a train. That's what it is. Yeah, they go into the train tunnel, and they end up catching a train with the hollow, because the hollow. Yeah, they end up catching the train. And they're on it, and they're all like covered in blood and everything, and so they're like an atrocious sight. And these two other people come in and are completely terrified. There's the whites. There's one that when they stop at a train station, there's a hollow that took onto its tongue to the back of the train, is like coming, and the white had gone into the train station and got into the train car in front of them. So the two people come into the train car and like scream because they're all covered in blood and everything from the bending man who had gotten shot. And so the white starts beating on the door, and they try to hide against it. So as soon as the door opens, they run out and onto the train station and then they escape they run out away from the white and the hollow who are trying to follow them. So they end up going into like a con with a bunch of people dressed up characters, so they blend in pretty well. Then Addison follows the trail and leads them to like a small boat on the side of the water where their trail's on. And they try to unhook the boat when a figure like comes out and says, anyone steals from Sharon have to pay the consequence. And they try to explain to them that they weren't stealing, they just needed the boat. And then they start because they figured out that he's probably peculiar, so they start asking him if he took whites with kidnapped kids on the boat, and he's like, I can't talk about that, but I can offer you these vacation packages. And he starts talking, and then they're like, wait, we want to see them. And then he starts talking about one called Devil's Ark. He starts talking about all of the ones. He's talking about one called Devil's Ark. They're like, that must be what our friends are saying. And so they're like, okay, you show us that one. It's like, alright, that'll be he says it'll be a certain amount, and then it's like, we don't have that. So like, you can just pay me back later. They get onto the boat, and Sharon is like, Sharon, he's using something to like cloak them so none of the normal people notice them, because that would be kind of odd with Jacob, Emma, Addison, Sharon in the boat. And they go through to Devil's Oak. When they go through the loop, it's really discomforting, because it's like a really old loop and it's like really nasty and everything. And they go on the river and he's like, hide yourselves under this tarp. So they hide themselves under the tarp, and they meet the what I call the pirates, and they start asking, it's like, what's in your boat? It's like, what's under here? We have peculiars. They said they're gonna give us a lot of ambrosia for them. And they the hollow that had been following them was near, and then Jake used his powers just before they blitzed at the top. Used his powers to knock the pirates' boat out of the into the dirty, filthy water, and then they manage to go past them, and then there's more of them like on bridges and everything with guns, and he uses hollows to knock down the bridge, which ends up killing him. And they find some place to dock, and Sharon's like, okay, you have to leave now, you're bad luck, because you managed to make a hole in this thing. And they eventually they beg him to stay with them, and he's like, okay, I just need to meet with my lawyer, and then I'll help you find them. So they walk down all this winding streets and everything, and they go to one and wait for Sharon, and then it's the streets where the peculiars are selling themselves, and one person comes up and they ask if they want to see a show, and it actually ends up being like, it basically has them as slaves, and they show their peculiar abilities, and they try to save them, but they're just like completely like, no, we like it here. And then they end up coming out of there after Emma kind of beats on the lady that's running it, because she was almost had to be one of them. Miss Peregrine hadn't saved her, and they end up hiding behind one of the flocks when Sharon comes out of the office, because they don't want his help anymore, and because they got information about where the White's hideout would be from the lady. So they go down what they think is the right way, and they meet a group of peculiars that are just like all laying around and like homeless and everything. And then they're like, beware if you cross the bridge. And like, no, we get those scattered parts. Don't say anything. You'll get part of them if they have that. So they try to, so they don't listen to them, and they just end up going across the bridge, and they run across the bridge, and they pass shrunken heads that are put onto pikes that are yelling at them and warning them that they shouldn't go. And then they run across the bridge, and they come upon a place where there's a huge gap in the bridge, and then he senses like there's a hollow, which is supposed to which is in the one of the pillar things, just enough for him to stick out his tongue. So the hollow is like dragging them off the edge, and he's trying to control it, but it's not working. It's like dragging them towards the edge and falling over and everything. And then he manages to like make it kind of annoyed, so it puts them back on the thing, and they try to figure out a way to get across to the other side, and because they want Addison to go in there and scout the area, and then they were going to come in and attack, trying to figure out Wait, get over to the other side when a supply car comes that are like carrying lights. And then all the homeless people go over to it and are asking for something from them. They're like, yo, form a line. And then they go over to it and start to try to attack the lights so they can burn to the back and get the prisoners out of the car. And then it erupts into chaos where they're shooting and everything. And they start shooting at the homeless peculiars and them. And they drive away, and Addison manages to climb onto the bottom of the car, and then the homeless ones get really mad and start beating them to death. When Sharon comes with his cousins, the what's it called, Gallows people, and they make them go away. So they bring Emma and Jacob to, Jacob passes out, and they bring him to Mr. Benham's house, where he gets he wakes up and he's completely better basically. And Sharon's like, why did you do that? Why'd you leave? Because they didn't trust him and everything. And apparently he was the one that they were waiting for, so it's like, you have to speak to him. And then he'll have tea with you in an hour. And he's dress in something better. And Sharon leaves so they can go get dressed. And then was like, okay, we're gonna go out the window to search the house to see what kind of person this guy is. And they manage to go out the window and climb up across the house. They find none of the windows are open, so they just break one and they go in, where they found an artifact room with all things old peculiar used to use and everything. And they go on the old peculiars used to have. They go through to find other rooms, and they end up finding a hall that has a bunch of rooms that are marked different doors, different places. And they go into one, the Siberian room, and it's a snow mountain. There's a bed, and there's 3 walls, and then the 4th one is open cave. Go and they see a person. Then they see a bear coming at them, so they run and they hide in a different room, where they find a girl who's been frozen and encased in glass. And then they run out of the room. Because they hear the bear and they need to leave the room, so they run into no, that's okay. He's Mr. Benham's no, it's okay. He's nice and everything. He won't bite you. And he stops, and they lead them to the library. It's I'll explain everything after tea. Or after we have some tea. So they drink tea, and they're like, okay, well, we need you to tell us what you know. And he tells them about how he tells them about his Panloopticon, which leads to any loops, and how his brother had stolen it from him and had the white things, and that he was Miss Peregrine's brother. He was talking about him and everything. He said that he had stolen a piece of Abe's soul his peculiar soul, to try to give the power to other peculiars so they would be able to see the hollows as well. And then he ended up proposing a plan that if Jacob could use his ability to talk to a hollow, they could use its energy to make his Panloopticon work again, and so it would connect with his brothers to where they can get inside. And so they agree to do that, and they go find. Then Sharon tells them that the hollow that Jacob had been controlling earlier was not dead. So they go to get it back from a bar, where they find ambrosia, which is you pour it into your eye and strengthens your abilities. And at first when you pour it in, your eyes are like flashlights, and they can burn things. They're so bright. And then if you use too much of it, then you will need it to survive. And that Sharon was an addict, but Benham had weeded him off of it. And they find the dealer person that's asked them if they wanted. Nope. So they go in, and he's controlling the hollow. And he has to make it look like he's putting up a fight, because he can't just super easily win. So he makes the whole fake fight, and then right when in the hollow, after a long time, loses control of it. He loses control of it and actually tries to kill him, and so he has to stab it in the throat, which really gravely injures it. And then they bring him back, and he manages to get back control of it and fake its death. And then after they made sure that he's dead, they manage to escape by holding the ambrosia stealer. And ambrosia is actually little tiny bits of peculiar soul that are cut out of them. And so it's completely disgusting and everything. They manage to get back. They hook the hollow to the Penloopticon, where it works and makes the loops work again. So they use one of them that heads to the calls one in his tower, and they find the room that has all peculiars sucked up machines, and they have a needle in the bottom of the foot sucking the peculiar soul out. And they find the telekinetic girl and the echolocator brothers, and they're like, and there's a wild man. He's like, where are they keeping the other peculiars? And they're like, it's like, you're on top of them. And they're like, what? And then they notice a door, so they go down and they see all their friends are alive except for Fiona. And they the white down there, they manage to get him down, and so they steal his keys. And Jacob gives the keys to them. It's like, here, unlock your cells. So they go out into the room. They ask them where the inburns are. They say they're at the end of the hall. So they walk down to the hall. They walk down the hall, and they open the door, and then they find the guy, and Emma and Jacob find the guy, and they call his voice is going over the intercom. They're like, we're going to kill you. And then he turns around, it's not him, it's just over the intercom. He's like, I'll send a hollow, and if you can do good with him, I'll send the other ones. And so he sends one in, and he goes into the room, and you can't control it, and they find all the inburns, and he doesn't get it controlled, and then he almost takes the ambrosia, which he's stolen. Miss Peregrine's like, no, don't do it, so he doesn't. And the hollow has him in his mouth and just recedes down to his lair, where he uses the tiny bit of mother dust, who can make people sleep. He uses that in the hollow's mouth, and then it comes out into the air, and all the hollows pass out. And when he wakes up, he actually is a hollow, and is upstairs, but he's also, and then he's trying to tell him that he doesn't know that, and then he turns back into Jacob, and now all the hollows are under his control. So they use the hollow army to take out all the whites in the way. Then they get up to the stairs with all of their friends and Miss Peregrine, all the friends and all the inburns, and then they disconnect all of the what's it called, the IV things that are sucking the souls out of peculiar people, and they go out to the courtyard where Olive sees that they left Olive go up to the end, and she sees that all of them go to a small house, and so he makes his hollow surround the house, and they go inside and see that there's birds, and he thinks there's inburns, but then they're like, no, they're all here. And so they all burst inside, and the birds start to blow up. The birds all blow up and like hit the deck, and they all go down. And so Jacob only has his one hollow left, the one that he's riding, and an army of 20 whites start coming at them, which they decide to fight. So they go at it. They go at the army. After it gets really close to them, they go at it and use hand-to-hand combat, and they kill most of them except for 4 that have, no, 5 that end up running away. So they chase after it, and then it's already brought one across the bridge, and it's already brought a few across the bridge, a hollow there. They're bringing them across, and they manage to get it. Jacob controls it, and it drops them, 3 of them, into the acid thing beneath. And then they can't find Miss Peregrine, and then the one in front of them surrenders. They can't find Miss Peregrine. And then Carl's like, she's right here with her family where she belongs. And Ham had came and betrayed them. He had decided to help Kyle. And so she was trapped in there. It's like, now do what we say and she won't die. And so they go with him. Two of the whites pick up the guns and they come with them. And they go with them to Abaton, which is actually the Library of Souls, which they figure out. So they go with him to that. And it's like a rocky place. And they go through it. They go down the path and into the door to the library. And he's like, okay, only important people. So Jacob, because Jacob's ability, they also have librarians there who are the only people that can see and touch the soul jars. And so Jacob's ability of controlling Holocaust was actually supposed to be like a librarian, but it has been morphed into that. So they bring Emma for Light, Miss Peregrine, Jake, and then two whites, Kyle and Ham. They go farther and farther into the library, where they end up getting to the back room, which is the biggest one of them. And he reads all the souls that are in there to them, picks them up, and he's like, and then Kyle's like, okay, which one of you want to use it first? One of the whites like, I'll do it. He's like, I like your attitude, you go do it. He's like, maybe take it like I'm pushing. He's like, yeah, do that. So he pours it into his eyes, and his face just starts to melt. And then there's like a rushing water in there, and it goes into the water, where it ends up going into the water, where Soul like stands up. He's like, so if you go in, somebody does it, if you go into there, you can get his powers. So he picks the big jar, and Jacob pours it onto the ground. He goes over there, and he walks into it, and it becomes like a huge creature who starts attacking them. And then his friends, he was attacking them, and he shot Jacob.
Where'd it go?
Which his bulletproof scarf that Horace had given him had saved him from dying. And they go, and his friends had managed to escape, and so Kyle leads them out, and then Ham takes the part of soul that he had stolen from him and he puts it in his eyes so he could see the souls in the library. And he picks one, the other really big one, to try to fight him. He's like, no, trust me, I can do this. So he pours it, and then Jacob attacks him. Miss Peregrine's like, no, you have to leave him because he has a recipe that will close the loop and kill him. So he gets over into the loop, and then Kyle comes back, and they start tagging each other. And all the peculiar children and the Embrons, they run away out to the entrance of the loop so the Embrons can close the loop, and it will collapse and it will kill them. They're like, okay, after we do this, we have a minute to get out. So they say the thing, and the ground starts like breaking. So they run and end up getting out of the loop just in time. And then they're like, okay, we have to close the door. But then Brolin had knocked the door down, so they couldn't close it. So we get to the tower, and they're like, we have to get away. And so Olive, she's like super tiny, but she's like, no, I can float you down. And they like, it's like, oh crap, I guess we have no other way. So they end up floating down to the ground and out of the way where they're safe in. And they go back to Ham's house. Loop collapse, and then Kyle and Ham both die in it. And so they go back to Ham's house, where they start, like, they get all healed, and then Emma and Jacob are talking. Jacob's like, I think I have to see my parents, and they agree that he was gonna leave. So he says goodbye to everyone, and he goes back to London with his parents, who he meets pretty easily with Miss Peregrine and Emma. And then they have an encounter, and Miss Peregrine's like, I can erase their memory if you want me to. She's like, okay, yeah, let's do that, because then we don't have to figure out an explanation. So they go back to the thing, and they're talking, and his parents talking, and he's like, oh my gosh, why did you run away? Why did you do that? And he's like, we have to explain. He's like, I'll explain later. And then they're like, no, you have to do this now. And the officer's like, yeah, and you need to do a drug test and answer some questions. And Jacob's like, Miss Peregrine, now would be probably a good time. So So she starts doing the erase their mind trick thing. And then it's like, my name's Alma Peregrine. Alma Faye Peregrine. And they're like, and it's like, it's probably best if you forget your time in the British Isles. They're like, yeah, and yeah. And the cop too. And he's like, no, you can't erase the memories of this. That would just seem like the cheat way. So she just erased the memory of Miss Peregrine and Emma. And then they go back to America, where his parents think that he's crazy. So he has to go back to a psychiatrist and talks to like 4 days and doesn't actually take his medicine. And then he starts, and then Emma, like a long time later, his parents are starting to think he's going insane again. Emma sends him a letter, and so he starts writing back, and they start talking to each other. And then it's been a long time since Emma and he even come to the house. And it's been a long time since they got an email at all. So they go to the psychiatrist, and then his parents come with him, which they never do, into the room. And the psychiatrist is like, now what are these letters? And he's like, hey, those are my letters. And she doesn't give them back, and she hasn't explained. It's like, yes, he made up this whole entire thing. He made up this whole thing of peculiarity and panopticons and all of this, and that he's crazy and that he has to go to a mental institute because he could cause harm to himself and to others. So they're all super scared, and they have his uncle, and he's like, give me my letters. And she's like, after we talk about them. And then doesn't, and he freaks out. He's like, no, give them to me. And he reaches out, and his uncles come in, they're like bodyguards, and they take him home with his uncles, and he's always being watched. And he's sick of it because as soon as there's going to be an opening at one of the mental hospitals, he's going to be admitted to it. So he's constantly on watch, and you can't send him any more letters that they've been doing. But he remembered that he set up an email for her, and she doesn't know that she's going to even get it all, but he has to try something. So he sends her an email, and he like explains everything that's happening. And then his parents get a call that place is open, and so they leave that night. It's like 9 o'clock, and then it's like, it's 9 o'clock. They don't care that it's a 2-hour drive, so they leave. And when they leave out of the garage, in the driveway is standing Miss Peregrine, Millard, Enoch, Horace, Olive, Emma, and Claire, and Rowan. All of his peculiar friends are right there with Miss Peregrine. And they're freaking out because they show their peculiar abilities, and they're like, hello, we've met before. And his uncles pass out, and he gets out of the car. He's like, how is this even possible? Wouldn't you age forward and die? And they're like, no. When the loop collapsed, apparently a side effect is that you get reset to your age. So now they're all that, like the age they were when they first went into the loop. And so they could live in the present time with Jake, and they stay in his house in Florida with him. And so now Emma and Jake can be together. And I was really, really excited about how it ended. So I was really glad that actually happened. So this book was really good. I really liked it. Library of Souls. I think it ended really good. It ended really well. They ended up be together after all. So I really liked it. Please comment your opinions about the book below. Thanks for watching, and bye.